The crystalline spires of the Kralthean diplomatic vessel loomed before diplomatic officer Thea Harrison as her shuttle approached the docking bay. Her palms were sweaty inside her formal white uniform gloves. Humanity's first official contact with the Kralthean Empire rested largely on her shoulders, and failure wasn't an option. "Remember your briefing, Officer Harrison." Admiral Porter's voice crackled through her earpiece. "The Kraltheans are highly ritualistic. One wrong move could set our species back decades." "Understood, Admiral," Thea replied, straightening her collar. After 15 years in the diplomatic court, she'd handled her share of delicate first-contact situations. But something about the Kraltheans put her on edge. Perhaps it was their imposing height. The average Kralthean stood nearly 8 feet tall, or their reputation for rigid adherence to tradition. The shuttle doors hissed open, revealing a welcoming party of tall, elegant aliens with iridescent scaled skin in shades of purple and blue. Their ceremonial armor gleamed under the ship's lights, intricate patterns shifting across the surface like liquid metal. At their center stood Commander Nix'varan, leader of the Kralthean diplomatic fleet. Thea had studied images of Kraltheans, but they hadn't prepared her for Nix'varan's presence. The commander's scales shimmered with deep violet undertones, and patterns of bioluminescent markings traced delicate lines across their face. Their eyes, with vertical pupils like a cat's, fixed on Thea with unnerving intensity. "Welcome aboard the Starweaver, Officer Harrison," Nix'varan said, their translator rendering their musical language into crisp English. "We trust your journey was acceptable." "Most acceptable, Commander," Thea replied, giving the traditional Kralthean greeting gesture. Right hand pressed to heart, left extended palm up. "On behalf of the United Earth Coalition, I express our gratitude for this opportunity." Nix'varan's head tilted slightly, their facial markings pulsing with a soft light. "Your knowledge of our customs is impressive. Few species bother to study our ways before seeking alliance. Earth believes understanding leads to stronger bonds between peoples," Thea said, following Nix'varan as they led her through corridors that seemed to be carved from living crystal. "We hope to prove ourselves worthy allies." "Worth," Nix'varan said, their tone sharp, "is proven through actions, not words. Your species is young, volatile. Some among my people question the wisdom of this meeting." They arrived at a vast chamber dominated by a circular table that appeared to be grown from the same crystalline material as the walls. Other Kralthean officials waited, their scaled faces impossible to read. "Then we appreciate even more the chance to demonstrate our potential," Thea said, taking her designated seat. "Humanity has much to offer." The negotiations proceeded smoothly at first. Thea presented Earth's proposal for trade routes, scientific exchange, and mutual defense agreements. The Kraltheans listened with typical stoic patience, occasionally asking precise, probing questions that Thea answered with careful diplomacy. Everything changed during the traditional sharing of refreshments. A Kralthean attendant presented Thea with a ceremonial chalice containing a shimmering blue liquid. She'd been briefed about this. Accepting the drink was a sign of trust and goodwill. What her briefing hadn't covered was the proper way to handle the chalice. As Thea reached for it, her fingers brushed against the attendant's scaled hand. The attendant recoiled as if burned, dropping the chalice. Without thinking, Thea lunged forward to catch it. She succeeded in grabbing the chalice, but her momentum carried her directly into Commander Nix'varan. Their faces came within inches of each other, and in that moment of startled confusion, Thea's lips accidentally brushed against the commander's scaled cheek. The chamber erupted in chaos. Kralthean officials leaped to their feet, some reaching for weapons while others backed away in apparent horror. Nix'varan stood frozen, their bioluminescent markings flashing in rapid patterns Thea had never seen before. I apologize for my clumsiness," Thea stammered, stepping back. "I meant no offense." "Offense?" Nix'varan's voice was barely more than a whisper. "You have no idea what you've done, do you?" Their markings had settled into a steady pulse, painting their face with ethereal light. You have initiated the bond of souls. By our most ancient laws, we are now bound for life. Thea's diplomatic training hadn't prepared her for this. I'm sorry, we're what? Among my people, the touch of lips is sacred, reserved only for those who wish to join their souls in eternal partnership. Nix'varan's expression was unreadable, but their markings had taken on a deep purple hue. Such bonds cannot be broken without devastating consequences for both parties. Thea felt the blood drain from her face as the implications sank in. In trying to prevent a diplomatic incident, she'd apparently just married the commander of the Kralthean diplomatic fleet. Surely there must be some provision for accidental bonds. She asked weakly. The intent matters not. The bond is formed. Nix'varan's gaze bored into her. You are now my bonded, and I am yours. Our fates are intertwined, whether we wish it or not. As the other Kraltheans continued their agitated discussions, Thea's earpiece crackled to life. Harrison, what the hell is happening up there? Admiral Porter demanded. Thea took a deep breath, watching as Nix'varan's markings slowly shifted from purple to a deep resonant blue. Sir, she said with remarkable steadiness, I believe I just accidentally married an alien. The next 24 hours aboard the Starweaver were the longest of Thea Harrison's life. She sat in her hastily assigned quarters, which had apparently been retrofitted to accommodate her smaller human frame, staring at the holographic display of Admiral Porter's increasingly agitated face. Let me get this straight, Porter said, pinching the bridge of his nose. You're telling me that because of a simple kiss, you're now eternally bound to the Kralthean commander. A completely accidental kiss, Thea clarified, though she knew it made little difference. And according to their laws, breaking this bond would be tantamount to declaring war. Fantastic. Porter's sarcasm could have cut through steel. Our first major diplomatic contact with an advanced civilization, and you've managed to get yourself celestially married to their fleet commander. Before Thea could respond, a chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Zarevek, Nix'varan's chief cultural advisor. The Kralthean scales shimmered with an almost apologetic green tinge. Officer Harrison, Zarevek said, bowing slightly. The commander requests your presence for the ritual of acknowledgement. Thea held up a finger to Porter's hologram. I'll have to call you back, Admiral. The ritual chamber was unlike anything Thea had seen before. Crystal walls pulsed with living light, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Commander Nix'varan stood in the center, their ceremonial armor replaced by flowing robes that caught and reflected the ambient light in mesmerizing patterns. My bonded, Nix'varan said formally, their markings flickering with what Thea was beginning to recognize as nervousness. Are you prepared to face the consequences of our unexpected union? Do I have a choice? Thea asked, then immediately regretted her tone. I apologize. This is just overwhelming. For both of us, Nix'varan admitted, their voice softening slightly. I never expected to bond with anyone, least of all a human, but the ancient laws are clear. We must either embrace this bond or face disgrace that would reshape both our civilizations. The commander gestured to a circular platform in the center of the room. The ritual of acknowledgement will formally recognize our bond before both our peoples. It will also, they hesitated. It will initiate the physical aspects of our connection. Thea's eyes widened. Physical aspects. Nothing inappropriate. Nix'varan quickly assured her, their markings flushing a deep purple. But Kralthean bonds create a biological connection. We will begin to sense each other's strong emotions, physical well-being, and approximate location. That's impossible, Thea stammered. Humans don't have that capability. The process adapts to both species involved, Zarevek explained from the doorway. It's one of the mysteries our scientists still struggle to understand. The bond reshapes both parties at a fundamental level. Thea felt lightheaded. Not only was she accidentally married to an alien, but now she was going to be biologically linked to them. And if we don't complete this ritual, then the incomplete bond will slowly drive us both mad, Nix'varan said grimly. It has happened before, in the rare cases where bonds were rejected. Neither survived the experience. With shaking hands, Thea activated her communicator. Admiral, you're going to want to witness this. She stepped onto the platform beside Nix'varan, whose markings had begun to pulse in a hypnotic rhythm. The ritual itself was surprisingly simple. Thea and Nix'varan clasped hands while Zoravek recited ancient Kralthean words. As the chant reached its crescendo, Thea felt a strange warmth spreading from where their hands touched, flowing through her entire body. Then suddenly, she felt it, a presence in her mind, alien yet somehow familiar. She gasped as foreign emotions washed over her, uncertainty, resignation, and underneath it all, a grudging curiosity that matched her own. The bond is complete, Zoravek announced. May the stars witness your union. Thea looked up at Nix'varan, seeing them with new eyes. The commander's markings were swirling with colors she somehow knew represented a mix of anxiety and hope. Well, she said, trying to inject some levity into the situation, I guess we should start getting to know each other, since we're stuck together. Indeed, Nix'varan's reply carried a hint of amusement that Thea felt echo through their new connection. Though perhaps we should begin with the basics. For instance, I believe it is customary in human culture to know one's mate's full name. Thea couldn't help but laugh, even as she felt the commander's own mirth bubbling through their bond. Thea Harrison, formerly of Earth, apparently now of wherever we end up. And you? Does Nix'varan have a family name? We do not use family names as you do, but my full title is Nix'varan Kavor Seleth, Guardian of the Seventh Fleet, Keeper of the Crystal Tides. They paused, markings flickering with what Thea now recognized as embarrassment. Though I suppose you may simply call me Nix. Nix, Thea repeated, testing the name. Through their bond, she felt a flutter of pleasure at the informal address. So, what happens now? Now, Nix said, their expression grave but their emotions revealing uncertainty. We must announce our bond to both our peoples and pray to the ancient stars that this accident doesn't spark an interstellar incident. As if on cue, both their communicators chimed with urgent messages. The news of their bond had already begun spreading through both fleets, and the reactions were mixed, to say the least. Together, they stood facing the crystal walls of the ritual chamber, watching as the living light pulsed in patterns that seemed to mirror their shared apprehension. Whatever came next, at least they would face it together, whether they liked it or not. 3 days into their unexpected bond, Thea was still adjusting to the constant awareness of Nix'varan's emotions humming in the back of her mind. She sat in the Starweaver's observation deck, watching distant stars streak by while trying to sort out which feelings were hers and which belonged to her alien bondmate. The door slid open, and Thea didn't need to turn around to know it was Nix. Their presence in her mind grew stronger with proximity, bringing with it an undercurrent of concern. You're troubled, Nix said, settling into a specially designed chair beside her. Their markings pulsed with gentle blues and greens, a pattern Thea had come to associate with attempted comfort. Just processing, Thea replied, glancing at the commander. It's strange, feeling someone else's emotions. Even stranger that I'm starting to understand what your markings mean without being told. The bond adapts us to each other, Nix explained, their tall frame relaxing slightly. Though I must admit, human emotions are intense. How do you manage such strong feelings constantly? Thea was about to respond when a surge of alarm shot through their bond. Nix stood abruptly, their markings flashing warning reds and oranges. Moments later, the ship's alert system activated. Commander, Zoravek's voice came through the comm system. Void stalker vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding to speak with you. Thea felt Nix's spike of fury and fear. Void stalkers. Here? She asked, following as they strode toward the bridge. Pirates and slavers, Nix explained grimly. They prey on diplomatic vessels, believing them to be easy targets. They must have learned of our meeting with Earth. The bridge was a flurry of activity when they arrived. 3 sleek, predatory ships hung in space before them, their hulls covered in scarred black armor. "They're hailing us," a communications officer reported. On screen, Nix commanded, their posture straightening into one of authority. A face appeared on the main display, another Kralthean, but their scales were deliberately scared in patterns that marked them as outcasts. "Commander Nix'varan," the Void Stalker captain sneered. "How fortunate to find you here. We heard you've taken a human mate. The underground markets would pay handsomely for such a unique specimen." Thea felt Nix's rage explode through their bond, nearly staggering her with its intensity. Their markings blazed with colors she'd never seen before. "If you value your life, you will leave immediately." Nix's voice was deadly calm, but Thea could feel the storm of protective fury beneath it. The Void Stalker laughed. "You're in no position to make threats. Your ship is designed for diplomacy, not combat. Surrender the human, and we might let the rest of your crew live." Thea stepped forward before Nix could respond. Through their bond, she sent a pulse of determination and an idea. Nix's markings flickered with surprise, then understanding. "You clearly haven't done your research," Thea said, standing tall beside her bondmate. "A Kralthean life bond goes both ways. Try to take me, and you'll have to face both of us." She felt Nix's approval as they added, "And you forget, outcast, that even diplomatic vessels carry weapons, particularly when escorting valuable human allies." On cue, the Starweaver's hidden weapon ports opened, revealing arrays that had been seamlessly concealed within its crystalline structure. Thea felt a surge of satisfaction through the bond. Nix had been waiting for this moment. The Void Stalker captain's scared face twisted in rage. "You would risk war for a human." "No," Nix replied coldly. "I would protect what is mine. This is your final warning." For a tense moment, nobody moved. Thea and Nix stood united, their bond humming with shared resolve. Through it, they coordinated silently, Thea feeding Nix tactical suggestions from her military background, while Nix guided the Starweaver's weapons into optimal position. The Void Stalkers fired first. The Starweaver's crystals sang as energy weapons lashed out, but its shields held. Nix's hands flew over the command console, and the ship responded like a living thing to their touch. "Hold on," Nix warned through their bond. The Starweaver spun in a maneuver that should have been impossible for a vessel its size, bringing its main weapons to bear. Crystalline energy lanced out, catching the lead Void Stalker ship off guard. The battle was brief but intense. The Starweaver's diplomatic exterior had hidden significant military capabilities, and with Thea and Nix working in perfect synchronization through their bond, the Void Stalkers never stood a chance. As the pirates retreated, their ships trailing plasma, Thea sagged against the command console. The adrenaline fade left her shaking, but through their bond, she felt Nix's pride and relief. "You handled yourself well," Nix said aloud, their markings showing colors of admiration. Few would have remained so calm in their first space battle. "We handled ourselves well," Thea corrected, feeling their shared satisfaction. "I'm starting to think this bond might have some advantages." Nix's markings shifted to a pattern she hadn't seen before, something between amusement and affection. "Perhaps," they agreed, "the accident that brought us together wasn't entirely unfortunate." Looking around the bridge, Thea noticed the other Kraltheans watching them with new respect. She and Nix had just demonstrated that their bond was more than a diplomatic inconvenience. It was a partnership that could face real challenges. As the crew began damage assessments and sensor sweeps, Thea felt something else through the bond. A growing warmth, a sense of rightness that hadn't been there before. Glancing at Nix, she saw their markings pulsing in a pattern that matched the feeling in her heart. Maybe, just maybe, this accidental marriage wouldn't be such a disaster after all. The aftermath of the Void Stalker attack left the Starweaver buzzing with activity, but Thea found herself drawn to the ship's hydroponics garden. The familiar sight of earth plants growing alongside alien flora brought her a measure of peace as she tried to process everything that had happened. Through their bond, she felt Nix before she heard them approach. Their emotions were a complex swirl of concern, curiosity, and something deeper that neither of them had been ready to name. "The earth roses are adapting well to Kralthean soil," Nix observed, their tall frame casting a shadow over a cluster of blooming flowers. Their markings rippled with gentle colors that Thea now recognized as contentment. "Like me, I suppose," Thea replied, touching a rose petal. "Adapting to an alien environment." "You did more than adapt today," Nix said, their voice softer than usual. "You proved yourself a true warrior. The crew speaks highly of how you handled the attack." Thea felt their pride through the bond, warming her from within. "We proved ourselves," she corrected. "I never thought I'd be able to coordinate so perfectly with someone during combat. The way we moved together, anticipated each other's thoughts." "The bond grows stronger," Nix agreed, settling beside her on a crystalline bench. "I find myself increasingly aware of you, your thoughts, your feelings, even your dreams sometimes." Thea's heart skipped a beat, and she knew Nix felt it through their connection. "You can see my dreams." Their markings flushed with embarrassment. "Not clearly, just impressions. Last night, you were dreaming of your home, of Earth's oceans. I felt your longing." "I miss it," Thea admitted, "but not as much as I expected to. The Star Weaver is beginning to feel like home, and the crew." She hesitated, then added softly, "And you're becoming family." Nix's markings blazed with sudden intensity, and through their bond, Thea felt a surge of emotion that took her breath away. Before either could speak, however, Zaravek's voice came through the comm system. "Commander, Officer Harrison, your presence is required in the communication chamber. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Kralthean High Council." They found the High Council members' holograms waiting, their ancient scaled faces stern and unreadable. The council leader, whose markings showed centuries of wisdom, spoke first. "Commander Nix'varan, we have reviewed the incident with the Void Stalkers. Your handling of the situation was unexpected." Thea felt Nix's tension through their bond. "We acted to protect the ship and crew, honored ones." "Indeed," another council member said. "And in doing so, you demonstrated something remarkable. The efficiency of your bond with the human exceeded our predictions." "Predictions?" Thea asked, unable to keep silent. Through their connection, she felt Nix's sudden alertness. The council leader's markings shifted to a pattern Thea couldn't read. The possibility of a human Kralthean bond was theorized, but never tested. Some among us believed it might serve as a bridge between our peoples. Understanding dawned on Thea, accompanied by a wave of shock from Nix. "You were watching us, waiting to see if a bond might form." "We did not arrange your accident," the council leader assured them. "But we were prepared for the possibility. The success of your bond opens new diplomatic avenues. Other humans and Kraltheans might follow your example, creating a network of bonds to unite our species." Nix's emotions roiled through their connection. Surprise, anger, and a fierce protectiveness that made Thea's heart race. "Our bond is not a political tool," they declared, their markings flashing morning colors. "No," the council leader agreed. "It has become much more than that, hasn't it?" Before either could respond, alarms blared through the ship. Multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace. A crew member announced, "Void Stalkers, they've returned with reinforcements." The council leader's hologram flickered. "We will continue this discussion later. Protect your bond, Commander. It may be more important than you realize." As the holograms faded, Thea and Nix shared a look. Through their bond, they felt each other's determination and something else, a deepening connection that made their earlier battle synchronization feel like a mere preview. "Ready to show them what a real bond can do?" Thea asked, feeling Nix's fierce joy at her words. Their markings blazed with battle-ready colors. "Together, my bonded. Always together." As they rushed to the bridge, their bond humming with shared purpose, Thea realized that what had started as a diplomatic accident had become something precious, something worth fighting for. The Void Stalkers were about to learn exactly how dangerous a truly united human Kralthean pair could be. The Starweaver's bridge erupted into organized chaos as 5 Void Stalker vessels emerged from hyperspace, their weapons already charging. Through their bond, Thea and Nix moved as one to the command station, their shared consciousness processing tactical data faster than either could alone. "They've adapted their shields to our crystal weapons," Thea observed, feeling Nix's strategic mind working alongside her own. "But they don't know about the modifications we made after the last battle." Indeed, Nix's markings pulsed with fierce determination. "Zaravek, initiate defense pattern Delta. All crew to battle stations." The Starweaver's crystalline structure hummed with energy as its hidden weapons deployed. But this time, the Void Stalkers were prepared. Their lead ship launched a barrage of electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt the crystal-based systems. Thea felt Nix's momentary panic as the ship's controls flickered. Without hesitation, she reached out, placing her hand over Nix's on the command console. Through their bond, she shared her knowledge of human manual override systems. "The auxiliary controls," they said in unison. Their bond deepened as they worked together, Thea's human adaptability complementing Nix's centuries of Kralthean expertise. The Void Stalker captain's face appeared on their view screen, his scarred scales twisted in a sneer. "Surrender the human," he demanded. "Our new allies want to study this bond of yours. They're particularly interested in how to break it." Nix's fury blazed through their connection, but Thea's strategic mind caught something else. "New allies?" she asked, even as she helped Nix guide the Starweaver through a series of evasive maneuvers. "The High Council needs to know about this." A blast rocked the ship, and emergency crystals flared to life throughout the bridge. Through their bond, Thea felt Nix's pain as the impact resonated through their connection to the ship's systems. "The Council was right," Nix said, their markings showing colors of revelation. "Our bond is more than just a diplomatic tool. It's a proof of what our species can achieve together. And some fear that unity." Understanding flowed between them. The Void Stalkers weren't just pirates. They were working with elements who wanted to keep humans and Kraltheans apart. Their bond represented a future that some would do anything to prevent. "Then let's show them exactly what they're afraid of," Thea said, her determination resonating through their connection. Together, they reached for the ship's controls. The bond between them expanded, encompassing not just their minds but their very beings. Through Nix's connection to the crystalline technology and Thea's human intuition, they became one with the Starweaver itself. The ship responded like a living thing to their unified command. Crystal energy weapons fired in patterns that no single pilot could coordinate, while defensive systems anticipated attacks before they came. The Void Stalkers found themselves facing not just a vessel, but the perfect synthesis of human and Kralthean capabilities. "Impossible," the Void Stalker captain breathed, watching as his ship's carefully coordinated attack fell apart. "No," Thea and Nix responded together, their voices harmonizing like the crystal song of their weapons. "This is what becomes possible when we trust each other completely." The battle reached its crescendo as the Void Stalkers launched their final assault. But in that moment, with their bond at its strongest, Thea and Nix saw the pattern, the one weakness in their enemy's formation. The Starweaver moved with impossible grace, its crystal weapons singing a symphony of light and energy. When the flash faded, the Void Stalker ships hung disabled in space, their weapons dark and their engines silent. As Kralthean security forces arrived to take the pirates into custody, Thea felt the battle hive fading from their bond, replaced by something deeper and more permanent. She turned to find Nix watching her, their markings showing colors she'd never seen before. "I understand now," Nix said softly, "why the ancient laws hold the bond sacred. What we have, it's more than just a diplomatic accident." Thea smiled, feeling the truth of it in their shared connection. I think we both knew that already. We just needed a good fight to admit it. Their bond hummed with shared joy as Nix's markings shifted to the patterns of deep affection that Thea had come to cherish. The Council wanted our bond to be a symbol of unity between our peoples, they said. Perhaps it can be more. A reminder that the strongest connections often come from unexpected places. And sometimes, Thea added, reaching up to trace the glowing patterns on Nix's face, the best diplomatic incidents are the ones you don't try to fix. The Starweaver's crystals sang softly around them as their bond pulsed with shared emotion. What had begun with a cultural misunderstanding had evolved into something unprecedented. A bridge between species, a weapon against those who would keep them apart, and most surprisingly of all, a love story written in the stars themselves. As they stood together on the bridge, watching the stars streak by, Thea and Nix's bond resonated with the promise of a future neither of them could have imagined alone. Sometimes they realized the universe had plans of its own, and the wisest course was simply to embrace them.